So we know both world wars were just giant class wars that were fought due to the inequalities brought on by capitalism.
First and Second World Wars were not a class war, and the creator also says the reason for the First and Second World War was because of capitalism being introduced into Eastern Europe and how Jews being leftist basically meant that Germany invaded Poland in 1939. But this is just not true. Let's first look at the First World War. You've got Serbia, who want to unify the southern Slavs into one big state. How this is at odds with the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, who had recently annexed Bosnia in 1908, which angered the Serbs. And the Austrians didn't like the Serbs because of Serb nationalism and how it's destabilising the empire. And the Serbs didn't like the Austrians because they blocked their imperial ambitions in the Balkans. Then on the 20th of June 1914, you got the assassination of Franz Ferdinand by Serbian nationalists, and this gives a prefix for Austria to declare war and invade Serbia and stamp them down. And this is a big thing, because if the Austrian-Hungarians just invaded Serbia straight away, without taking a month to mobilise basically, the war probably wouldn't have kicked off. But because the Austrians let it roll on for a month, other countries were mobilising, and it's sort of like an unstoppable ball going down the hill at this point. By the time the Austrians had invaded Serbia, many countries felt like they had no choice but to fight each other. Then you look at the reasons why the Ottoman Empire, Italy and Greece entered the First World War, and that was all due to imperial ambitions. For the Italians, it was to gain land on the Adriatic and parts of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. For the Ottomans, it's to regain some lands in Europe and, of course, North Africa. And for the Greeks, it was basically to get land off the Ottoman Empire, which they saw historically as their own. Now look at the Second World War. The reasons for the Second World War are fundamentally imperialistic. Of course, it goes a bit deeper in terms of trying to throw off the Treaty of Versailles and the issues with that. But basically, Germany invading Poland in 1939 was fundamentally imperialistic, and also little to do with capitalism and communism, really, like this creator says earlier in her video. You can watch the whole thing. It is an interesting video, but I personally don't agree with it. And basically the same with Italy as well. It's fundamentally imperialistic. And Mussolini's dream was also to recreate sort of like a second Roman Empire. And that was clear as soon as he came in. And then with the Japanese also always wanted an empire of their own. And that was clearly imperialistic. There was nothing really to do much with class. And yes, you can blame the Wall Street crash for some of the things. But I think obviously Mussolini came in before the Wall Street crash. Japanese actions in the Far East were clear before the Wall Street crash as well. It might have exacerbated events, potentially, but I think the Japanese were going to do what they did regardless of the Wall Street crash, because Japanese politics was like a minefield during the 1920s and